everyone, and welcome back. We've been talking about the early Galilean period of Jesus' ministry, and about 4 months into it, Jesus gets interrupted because it's the annual Passover. So Jesus needs to go to Jerusalem. He goes there for the Passover feast. We see that in John chapter 5, verse 1. And then he returns to Capernaum, his hometown of ministry. And now we're going to start the Middle Galilean period. This would be the most active and most fruitful part of his ministry. This period lasts about 10 months, and it's going to take us 3 days to get through it. Now, technically, him going to Jerusalem and returning isn't a part of his Middle Galilean period, but that's what separates the early from the middle. And the true starting point of his ministry starts when he gets back near the sea. As you will see over the next 3 days, Jesus' ministry follows a certain pattern. He's near the sea, then he goes throughout Galilee. Then he's by the sea, then he goes throughout Galilee. And then he's by the sea again. And almost every time he transitions from near the sea to throughout Galilee, he always stops at Capernaum. So that's his hometown of ministry. So in this Middle Galilean period, Jesus is going to be doing a lot of things. But primarily, he's going to be preaching, teaching, doing miracles, and then training the disciples. Now, the overarching thing that Jesus was trying to do was to convince people of who he was. Again, we are in the popularity period of Jesus' public ministry, but you will recognize that there's some opposition. So as we begin, you'll see that there's opposition in Jerusalem. And then as we end the Middle Galilean period, you'll see that there's more opposition. And see if you can't spot when in between there's some more opposition to Jesus and what he's trying to do. Okay, here we go with today's study. We're going to focus on Jesus going to Jerusalem and his return. And there's 3 things that we're going to focus on. Jesus used this occasion, this national holiday, to reveal more about who he was. Now, there are 3 controversies I want you to look at when it comes to the day of the Sabbath. The first thing I want you to see is Jesus healing the impotent man. Observe how many times Jesus uses the word Father, and how does he show that he is the Son of God. Next, I want you to observe the scene where Jesus' disciples are plucking the grain. Now, obviously, the people who were against Jesus would also attack his disciples. Now, focus on how Jesus is defending his disciples, and think about how in doing this, he's revealing more about who he is. And finally, with this scene right here, we're going to look at the withered hand healed. So think about, what Jesus is really Lord of in this situation. And think about that the Pharisees and the Herodians were usually arch rivals, but now they're conspiring to kill Jesus. What does this say about the fury that was in their hearts? Moving right along, we're going to look at Jesus going near the sea, particularly the Sea of Galilee. And we're going to focus first on the thronging crowds. How do you think Jesus really feels about all these people coming to him and surrounding him? Next, we're going to look at the apostles being ordained. As you read this section, note the duration of Jesus' prayer session. And think to yourself, what should determine in your life the duration of your prayer times? And now we get to probably the most important part of today's lesson, the Sermon on the Mount. Now, we probably don't know exactly where the Sermon on the Mount happened, but it was probably near Capernaum. It's important for you to know that this Sermon on the Mount was not delivered to unbelievers to tell them, how to get to heaven. Rather, it was primarily given for the disciples' benefit, to reveal truths of the people that are citizens of the kingdom of heaven. Now, I want you to focus on Matthew's account of the Sermon on the Mount and organize your study in the following way. So the Sermon on the Mount is about the citizens of the kingdom of heaven. Number 1, it's about their character. Number 2, it's about their requirements. Number 3, it's about their motives. Number 4, it's about their conduct. And number 5, it's about testing. Now, I understand there's a lot for us to read, but if you just focus on the Sermon on the Mount, you could pull so many spiritual truths that you could apply to your own life. The very last thing that we're going to do for today is we're going to look at Jesus' return to Capernaum and then the centurion's servant healed. This is actually a really cool story, and I don't want you to miss it because it is so cool. As you read, think about what Jesus is saying about Gentile believers and the Jewish non-believers. And that'll be it for today. Thank you for sticking with us. Remember that what we're starting today is just the first of 3 parts. So we're going to continue to Thursday and Friday in the middle Galilean period. But I just want you to enjoy jumping in and reading your Bible. Thank you very much.